Showcase. Today, we are privileged to have an incredibly special guest, a scholar, an economist, an activist, a humanitarian, and a key member of the United Nations World Food Programme, the 2020 winner of the Nobel Peace Prize for its efforts to combat hunger, for its contribution to bettering conditions for peace in conflict affected areas, and for acting as a driving force in efforts to prevent the use of hunger as a weapon of war and conflict. Please welcome our guest today, Mr. Dipayan Bhattacharyya, Senior Program Advisor at the World Food Programme, joining us from Rome. We'll talk to him more about the work that the WFP does in the areas of food poverty and how WFP supports vulnerable women in changing their lives. Good morning, Dipayan. Welcome again. And thank you so much for joining us. And a massive, massive congratulations to you and your team at WFP for winning this most prestigious award of the year, the Nobel Peace Prize. So how does it feel to you? And has the news sunk in yet?
No, not yet. Not yet. I say that, it was a huge surprise. But to be honest, I used to always wonder why WFP's contribution to peace is not acknowledged. We used to discuss internally, with our colleagues, because I have witnessed myself how food helps in bringing and maintaining peace and social cohesion. While conflict is widely acknowledged as one of the main drivers of hunger, there are many examples where hunger is also at the roots of conflict. I can give you the example of, for example, Syria, where conflict has displaced millions and millions of Syrians, either within their own country or in the neighboring countries. So this is an example where conflict is the main driver of hunger. But if I give you the example of Sudan, South Sudan, to be honest, in South Sudan, hunger is one of the root causes for conflict. So you have both these two extremes, but eventually what it matters as these people, suffer for generations. They remain displaced for generations. So WFP as the frontline UN agency and the largest humanitarian organization in the world is working 24/7 to ensure that peace prevails, even in the most difficult corners of the world, like Yemen, Syria, South Sudan, as I mentioned before. So we are truly humbled by this recognition, to be honest, and it gives us even more conviction to do much, much more for those people who are facing the brunt of conflict and disasters.
Wow. Wow. So you have completed 21 years with WFP. So how has your journey been so far? You've been to so many countries working on the program. So tell us about your journey so far with WFP.
Yeah, thanks, Piyu. Well, I joined WFP in 1999 after working for almost 8 years in the development sector in India. As I got exposed to the work UN does globally, it was like a dream come true when I got selected for a position in WFP's regional office for India, Nepal, Bhutan, Bangladesh, and Sri Lanka, based in New Delhi. Then I became an international civil servant in 2004 and moved to Indonesia. I was one of the first WFP staff members who was deployed to the 2004 tsunami-affected Aceh province in Indonesia. I was sent almost immediately after the incident on 26th of December. And let me tell you, Aceh at that point in time was in the middle of an active conflict. That conflict used to be called Free Aceh Movement. So it was kind of a no-go area for most of the humanitarians. But of course, we had some access, I would say limited access. But you already must have seen and heard about the widespread impact of that tsunami, not just in Indonesia, but it went as far as Somalia in Africa, the impact of tsunami, including India, Sri Lanka, and so many other countries. So when I was deployed, my first task was to ensure that, these affected people who do not have access to food at that point in time get some food. But how can we send food through all these conflict affected areas? Possibly these people, it may not reach those people. So I coordinated with the military, with the police, and I remember, I really coordinated with the government and their food department and organized 17 trucks of rice as the first consignment of food that was sent to these affected areas with the military protection. So after Indonesia, I worked in Uganda. And also, let me tell you, the northern part of Uganda was recovering from deadly, conflict, couple of decades of very deadly conflict at that point in time. Then I moved to Philippines, and I was exposed to yet another conflict in the Philippines. Southern Philippines was in the middle of four decades long conflict at that point in time. But luckily, I have seen how peace gradually came, and I'm very happy to tell you that that part of Philippines is now, kind of in the middle of a very sustained peace process. And I have seen how our food assistance really made significant difference in bringing that peace. Finally, before moving to Rome, I was based in Bangladesh as the deputy country director. Um, and just as soon as I arrived, there was a sudden influx of refugees from Myanmar, Rohingya refugees. And we had to, none of us were prepared and ready for that, but, WFP is known for, immediate action. And so we were the first agency to provide food and other assistance to these affected people. I also worked, I was part of a regional office for about 3 years. I was based in Cairo when I was serving all these significantly conflict affected countries in the Middle East, North Africa, and also a few countries in Central Asia. But I was based in Cairo, and I used to visit some of these countries. So, I supported almost 20 countries in a different kind of contexts in that region as well. But now, since last year, I have moved to the headquarters and providing mostly, I would say, normative guidance and support to our colleagues who are the frontline workers in the field. So this is how my 21 years in WFP has spanned. But I have witnessed how we have been evolving as an organization over these years by bringing innovations in our work. The dedication and passion that I see in our staff members cannot be compared with anything. In the most trying and difficult situations, you would still see them smiling. You know why? Because when we see smile on the face of persons after receiving food from us, this is simply priceless. You cannot imagine what kind of satisfaction we get. I remember in the Philippines when Super Typhoon Haiyan struck in towards end of 2013. I was also one of the first staff members to be deployed there to assess the situation. And I just could bring some dry food, biscuits and some dry food with me. Nothing was available there. And that's how we were surprising. But then we saw so many people without any food for days. So I just offered my biscuits to them. They were, even in those situations, they were smiling. They lost everything. But then when I offered food, they were so grateful. They were so, full of smile on their face. It's hard to believe that, they lost just a few days back, maybe lost their near ones, every belongings that they had. So yeah, this is the most satisfying job I can say that I've been doing for the past 21 years.
Wow, what an experience. It must be such an humbling experience to be out there in the field and in place of action. So I can imagine it must be a Herculean task for you and the entire team at WFP to carry on an enormous, work of this magnitude. And I believe in 2019, you provided food to 97 million people in 88 countries. So, how do you go about coordinating a work of this magnitude? And this year, 2020, the pandemic year, how has it impacted your work? Did you see any slowdown, or did you see an uprise in the work? We've had the migrant issues in India. So, did it impact your work this year?
It did definitely impact our work, but it's exactly the opposite. We are working even more. Um, you know, as we speak, we are now reaching out to more than 100 million people in these 88 countries. If I say, as I mentioned, WFP is the world's largest humanitarian organization. So there is a huge expectation that comes with that tag of largest humanitarian organization. So we have to be always ready. So we have a team who are fully dedicated in terms of emergency preparedness. Of course, we never expected that emergency would be a pandemic, of this scale and proportion. But let me tell you, we really geared up with the great support from our senior management, our executive director and deputy executive director, and all of them. They said, we are behind you. There will not be any dearth of resources. Go out, understand the situation, assess and plan, and see how best we can provide support to these people. This is a crisis of biblical proportion, so we should not be complacent. And as a result, what happened is that what we can say is that, as I mentioned, we have reached out to more than 100 million people now. On just to give you the proportion of our work and our preparedness, on any given day, as many as 5,600 trucks, 100 planes, and 30 ships are transporting food to the furthest corners of the world on any given day. And so on any given day, also millions of vulnerable people are using biometric smart cards given by WFP to buy food locally from their local retail stores that are also supporting local food producers and traders. More than 17 million children receive nutritious meals in schools that allow them to concentrate on their learning and development to their full potential, because these are the children who otherwise would go to school hungry. So all these are possible because of almost 19,000 staff members of WFP who come with varied levels of skill sets. Some would be coming with logistics background, some would come with nutrition background, some would come with analysis and mapping background, economists, and so a varied skill sets are required for such a massive organization and for a massive work that we are doing. And we exactly have that kind of capacity with ourselves. One more thing I would like to share with you, Piyu. The COVID-19 pandemic has definitely put an additional layer of vulnerability on top of conflict and climate change disasters. Food assistance is relevant now, I would say, more than ever, as people have lost their livelihoods and incomes. So, at this moment, based on our analysis, what we see is that a record 235 million will need immediate humanitarian assistance. And 30 million out of them are solely dependent on WFP's food. They do not have access to anything else. And nearly, in 2021, when we see that the number would become 235 million, is a 40% increase from 2020. And this is entirely brought on by COVID-19 pandemic. So far, as WFP's response, we have provided $1.7 billion of cash assistance in 65 countries, apart from food that we talked about. We are working with governments towards safe reopening of schools so that children can resume their studies and at the same time would have access to nutritious meals that they used to rely on. Governments in almost 50 countries have called upon WFP to help to introduce new social protection measures, or to strengthen or adapt their existing social protection programs. WFP also has provided food assistance to populations in COVID-19 isolation and quarantine centers, including returning migrants in a number of countries, not in India, but in a number of countries. WFP is known and respected for its logistics capacity, I must tell you. So on 1st May, WFP launched its air passenger services to provide a lifetime, or rather a lifeline, I would say, for health and humanitarian workers. These health and humanitarian workers, they all want to reach out to the most vulnerable areas and vulnerable communities, but without having any access to air passenger services, they would not be able to reach out to them. And for a significant period of time, most of the commercial flights were cancelled because of pandemic. So WFP stepped in. And so far, because of these humanitarian air service that we provide, we have been able to reach out to 68 different destinations across Africa, Asia, and Middle East, Latin America, and the Commonwealth of Independent States. And with almost 1,500 flights that we provided services through which these health and humanitarian workers managed to reach. So this has meant that almost 26,000 passengers from 415 different organizations were still able to go where they needed to go when commercial options were no longer available. We are also providing cargo movement services for shipment of life-saving items like medicines and PPE kits and whatnot. And so far, we have transported over 100,000 cubic meters of critical cargo to 171 countries on behalf of 67 organizations, including WHO, UNICEF, and others. So we are leader in logistics services in the humanitarian sector. And most of the organizations would not be able to deliver their assistance and support to the communities and the government if we as WFP, are not stepping up our logistical support and capacity. And we do that every time, and we deliver that every time. And these are the numbers that clearly tells how prepared we are and how we can, in a very short period of time, can scale up a massive humanitarian response anywhere in the world.
It's amazing, and the amount of work you do, the logistics that you mentioned, it's huge. I can't even start to imagine, the infrastructure you have developed over the years. But is there a way in which individuals like me, common citizens, can contribute to reduce or make any impact to the hunger, poverty around the world? Is there a way we can join hands with you?
Well, there could be a few ways. You first mentioned about charity. Let me tell you that, one can do very, very little small charity, but collectively that can become significant. We have an award-winning app called Share the Meal. It's called Share the Meal. Incidentally, this year in 2020, this app has been awarded Best App both on Google Play Store, as one of the Google apps, and also Apple App Store. So both Google and Apple awarded Share the Meal as one of the best apps of 2020 on a certain category, of course. So this app mobilizes, but once you download this app either through Google Play or through Apple App Store, what you need is to do a few clicks, and that would then enable WFP to receive a very small contribution from an individual. It can be a one-time contribution, it could be a recurring contribution, and then that really definitely enables us to receive contribution from individuals. But apart from that, of course, if individuals are connected to private sector, they can definitely, just through their corporate social responsibilities, could contribute, resources, even expertise. When we have this kind of huge, large-scale emergency responses, we need more human resources, more capacity. So there are many private sector experts in logistics planning, in procurement related services, or in any of the technical aspects. In IT is a huge also area of work where we have a number of experts working with us and supporting, so that we can look at that as a potential kind of collaboration with private sector entities and experts. We generally request for individual experts through our website and other sites for enlisting experts as a part of our roster. And when, like, very recently, we sent a request for a roster of engineers, a roster of those who has significant experience in doing soil and water conservation activities, mostly in the rural areas with the communities. So this kind of requests would come in from time to time. Individuals can, if they have relevant experiences and expertise, can send their CVs, and we can, based on the criteria, we can shortlist them and would, be ready for deployment, for short period of time, 3 months to 5 months, 6 months time, anywhere in the world. We also have internship opportunities for students who are, would graduate, within the next 6 months to 1 year's time, or have just recently graduated from a university. So these interns, they get rigorous exposure to our work, and that's kind of it many times could be a stepping stone to eventually get absorbed in WFP. There are many interns who worked with us and now part of WFP. So that is another opportunity I can talk about. Other than that, of course, there would be vacancies for regular positions. And like me, I was working in India and I saw a vacancy in Times of India and I applied, but that's how I got selected. It's not that I knew anybody in event system, not at all. So yeah, you have kind of different opportunities that are there. But apart from that, I would say that it's not always that one has to be directly involved with WFP.
Sure.
You have local NGOs, in Bangalore or around Bangalore, for example, there would be a number of very good NGOs who are actually serving and providing food assistance and awareness and advocacy support in and around Bangalore. Work with anybody who really wants to contribute can work with those NGOs, and that way you would be definitely indirectly supporting WFP. So yeah, there are definitely different ways to get involved. You can write about, someone who has flair for writing, write about, come up with nice stories. We can share a lot of information and, publish them in the media. Also, of course, social media is the most powerful media now. Spread the words of WFP. When I joined, before joining WFP, I had very little idea about WFP. We used to always know about WHO, World Health Organization, and UNICEF, and UNDP. I was not really that much aware of WFP, to be very honest. But then when I joined and I saw that WFP is actually one of the largest UN agencies, which I was not aware of. And the kind of work WFP is doing is unthinkable, honestly speaking. So yes, I mean, spread the words what WFP is doing. that way also it would definitely help.
Sure, and that's the purpose of Leaders Saturday Showcase. So thanks for touching upon on that. So when I think of food, I always invariably think of women, and I would like to connect your initiative at WFP to gender equality and women's empowerment. So how do you see that impacting your mission of eradicating hunger and poverty? It would be great if you could share an inspiring example of you working with women or on the issues of gender equality.
Thanks, Pew. It's a question which is very close to my heart, to be very honest. Mm-hmm. WFP as an organization takes gender equality and women's empowerment very seriously. But charity must begin at home, as we say. So firstly, we try to ensure that among our staff, we have a very good gender balance. Mm-hmm. You would see WFP women staff members are working in the remotest corners and in the most trying conditions. So there is no discrimination that only men would go to Yemen or a male staff would go to Syria. No, women are there even at some of the most difficult situations where even a man would dare to go. So we are very proud to see that more and more women colleagues are assuming even senior positions in WFP. Now, when it comes to our work in the communities, we ensure that gender equality and women empowerment are mainstreamed in every activity that we undertake in the field. Just let me give you an example from a Rohingya refugee response in Bangladesh, where I served for 2 years, and I was part of this activity. As you know, in 27, because of this sudden influx of Rohingya population from Myanmar, Bangladesh started hosting as much as 1 million Rohingya refugees. So when we were scaling up our humanitarian response in 2017, right from the beginning, our thinking was that, yes, we would provide life-saving food assistance to them, either in the form of actual food or through cash card, the biometric cash card that we provide, and where, a refugee family can go and redeem their, what is uploaded in the card and get food. But these are kind of free food. If continuously for years they receive food this way, we are not really building their capacity, and that is something which is not desirable. So while giving that food so that they do not have to think about, the food what they need to eat, we also simultaneously start building their skills and capacities and engage them in community work in their neighborhood. So what we actually did was that we thought, okay, generally we would definitely first start working with men, but you have 50% of the population, refugee population, who also could contribute, both economically and socially, if we really bring them to the front. So we started a project called Self-Reliance for Women, Refugee Women. And this self-reliance project was in partnership with a few other UN agencies. We joined hands together, and we started to provide functional literacy to them because most of them were illiterate. You start with functional literacy. You tell them, how to run a home more effectively and efficiently. You give them orientation on childcare, nutrition, etc. And then gradually you start giving them some livelihood skills, tailoring or handicraft making. And some of the women are also now doing mobile repair work. We provided training to them on mobile repair. So there are different kind of skill sets now they have. Why this is important? It's not because as long as they live in Bangladesh, they can earn some extra money. But eventually what we think is that they would go back to their own country. They come from Myanmar. So when they go back, these skills are mobile. They will go back to their own country with their skills, with that they can use to really have a better life back in their own country. So, now, because of pandemic, what we have started doing is that some of these women are also making masks, and then we buy back those masks and then distribute it elsewhere. Many of these women are also now getting training on producing hygiene kits, like sanitary pads. So they are trained on that because, in a very limited space, you have so many young women, adolescents, and adult women are staying. They need these kind of products, and in absence of that, it can create really significant hygiene-related challenges. So we are trying to ensure that through these training, they would be able to produce by themselves and would be able to sell within their communities things like sanitary pads and other things. So these are the various kind of trainings we provide. We link them to the market, and there are buyers who would come and buy from them. But at the same time, I must say that it's not just refugee women. We also have a significant program for Bangladeshi women who live near the camps, because if they see that we are only providing support to the refugees, they would not be happy, and that can really create more social discord than social cohesion and harmony. So we provide support also to the host population, and the women there are also getting different kinds of training, cash support, and then whatever they produce, they bring to these farmers markets organized within these refugee camps and sell their produce. There are retail shops within these camps, and then these retail shops also bring some of these produce from Bangladeshi women to their stores in the camps. So this is kind of a vibrant economy. Local economy is created by WFP, and of course not just WFP alone, other partners as well, and that really helps. So and then when we organize these kind of farmers markets and local markets on specific days within the camp, there is a greater interaction between the two communities. They start appreciating and learning about each other, because otherwise, there could be animosity. Why these people are occupying our land? Why they are cutting our forests? So we have comprehensive plans, and everywhere, women's empowerment, gender equality, and ensuring that women are socially and economically are able to actively participate in any humanitarian and development work is core to our every action that we do. And I've seen even elsewhere how we try to ensure that we work more and more with women. But I must tell you another important dimension. If we go to a household and just contact and talk to women and bring them forward, there could be even problems within a household that can lead to possibly greater violence against women in their households, because men would feel that we are not doing anything for them. So we sensitize them, we organize meetings with them, we also try to engage them in other economic activities and other kind of activities. So we need to ensure that that balance is not disturbed. We are not just kind of focusing on one part of a household and neglecting the other part. So even from the adolescence age, we try to bring in boys and girls. We try to talk to youth, both men and women and adults, and sensitization and this kind of behavioral change communication is extremely important, and we also invest a lot of efforts in doing that. So what I see is that these women are now confident, have functional literacy, they're contributing economically to their families, in their communities. Some of them become local leaders. They have better knowledge about food and nutrition. So the level of satisfaction that we get from this kind of work is immeasurable, honestly speaking.
No, I can. It's really so much information actually doesn't come through, from various sources by reading on your website or anything. But the amount of information that I got about the work that WFP does is by talking to you is really immense, and how you're impacting the basic social unit from family onwards and upwards into impacting a country and various nations, conflict affected areas. It's huge. And I feel it's the Nobel Peace Prize is, you are truly deserving of it. So thank you so much for taking your time out to talk to us, Dipayan. And I wish you and your family a safe and happy holidays. Hope you get to spend some quality time with your family in the upcoming holiday season. And that's it from us at Leaders Today, folks. Stay safe. See you in 2021. And bye for now.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Piyush. Same to you. Happy holidays to you and your family, and also through you, through Leadhers, to everyone. Happy holidays. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye for now.